It's 3:30 on a Saturday morning. The alarm clock suddenly rings. It rings so violently that it wakes everyone up. It was one of those alarm clocks with the two little bells on top that in order to get it going, you had to twist the little butterfly knob in the back for at least 10 to 15 times so you could maintain the time throughout the night. Almost everyone wakes up. But almost just as quick, everyone goes back to sleep, except for myself and my grandmother, who have to get ready to go to the market. Usually my uncle would pick us up with his pickup truck right around 4 o'clock. So my grandmother and I, we got ready. Then she would make coffee. Usually she would not have enough time to drink a coffee, so she would take it with her. After we were all ready, we would go out to an all wooden kitchen that we had on the outside. There were two kitchens, one on the inside of the house for evening, if we had to do anything on the inside of the house, or prepare breakfast. But the old firewood kitchen was mainly the hangout spot during the day, and where we cooked lunch and dinner most of the time. But my grandmother and I, after we were ready, we would head out to the old firewood kitchen and just wait till my uncle showed up with his pickup truck. Whenever he showed up, we would carry all the bags and fruits and vegetables and coconuts. We would carry it all to the side of the main road where we could load it up. Sometimes there would be at least two of my aunts who would already have some of their produce loaded on that pickup truck. Once everything is loaded, my grandmother would have a seat usually in the front of the pickup truck, and everybody else would be sitting in the back. It was about a 20 to 30 minute drive to the city. But with it being this early, with the wind we would say that we were a little bit chillier in the back of the pickup truck. It wasn't that cold, but not knowing what it's like to feel really cold in a cold climate, we always complained and said, "Oh, this is freezing." But it was usually a fun drive down to the market. Usually on the way there, the only thing we could see is whatever the lights from the truck were shining on, because most of the road that we were driving on was pretty much dark for the most part. The closer we got to the city, the more we could see the light from the sun faintly coming up on the horizon. At the same time, as a sign of the sun rising, we can hear the roosters crowing in the distance in different locations most of the way. There's this one place that really stuck in my mind. In the morning, it was a place that it seemed like it was a random little chapel with candles always lit just a little bit off to the side of the road. But I remember it was the one place that it was of no great significance to me, but I just remember that place being as if a reminder that, as a sign of positivity. I don't know what it is with the candlelight, but also it was a religious place, but just to give you a sense of hope. But that place always stuck in my mind. The closer we got to the city, the heavier the traffic got, but it wasn't busy to the point where the traffic would be jammed. It was just everyone who was heading to the market to get their produce and shelves and everything set up so they could be ready for the day. Or when the customers showed up, that they weren't still working on trying to get things out of bags and containers. When we finally arrived at the market, my grandmother's location for selling was right next to the bakery door. And then my aunts, had 3 aunts who would be just down from her. We would all lay everything down, situate them, organize it nicely so it looks presentable to the customers. She would take care of all the other stuff, and my job was to get the coconuts for her customers who needed or wanted to buy any. So generally my task was to chop the coconuts, slice the top just enough to, if the customer takes it home, they could just use a knife to cut a little hole at the top so it would be easily accessible. The coconuts were one of the main things some of the customers started off in the morning. Some people would show up with containers so they don't have to take the whole thing back with them because it was heavy. It would be easier to fit the water from the 4 coconuts into a small container than to take actual 4 coconuts back to their houses. As the morning slowly unfolded, the light slowly brightens up the area. The customers slowly flooded. The numbers increased. And you could begin to hear everyone calling and asking, "Can I get one of those? Can I get one of these?" Sometimes you would have 2 people trying to get the same item. I didn't know what bidding was at the time, but sometimes they would bid and whoever gave the best price would get it. Usually around 6 a.m. whenever my grandmother got a break, she would have a coffee and offered me some. Then around 7, she would tell me to go get something to eat. So I would take a break and walk around, and I could smell the food from different little wooden shacks being cooked. Whether they were preparing breakfast or lunch. But it was just so refreshing to smell peppers and all sorts of flavors in the air. And I would go through different little vendor shacks that sold food, and see what I found that was most appealing to me. I had to try to hurry up because if I stayed too long, I knew I would get yelled at by my grandmother. She would probably ask what took me so long. And I know that I have stuff that I need to get done. So I would hurry up and eat whatever I got for breakfast. And get back and assist her with whatever the customers needed. I know I didn't mention it earlier, but my grandmother, she was partly blind. She could see silhouettes, but not the actual face or people or the actual figures. So that's one of the reasons why she took me with her wherever she went. So anytime she needed change, whatever money the customer gave her, she had to show it to me to verify it. I would tell her, and usually she had a handkerchief tied inside of her shirt at the top of her bra. But that was her way of securing her money, because she didn't want to put it in any location and it fall out. But usually she would wrap it, fold it up, and then tie it into a knot. So at least she knows she couldn't lose it. At the time I was a kid, I saw nothing wrong with it. And her customers knew her well enough, so it wasn't a big deal to them either. Everyone who came to buy stuff from her knew that she didn't have perfect vision. But everything she did, I had to assist her with it. She was pretty sound. She had no issues health-wise. She would walk perfectly wherever she needed to go, but she just needed me for guidance. So every transaction that was made and she needed change, I had to communicate. I was somewhat the mediator between the customer and her. Not so much for determining the price, but mainly to verify how much change she should give back or how much money she was being offered. It may have seemed like really hard work. Sometimes it was. To be able to deal with the customers. But at the same time, looking back, it was fun. Sometimes I could tell the customers, they would call out a price and she would disagree with it. And most people knew her, or most people called her Granny. And if they didn't like the price, they would be saying stuff like, "Come on, Granny, you could give me a better price than that." And then she would negotiate and finally give them the best price she can get, or they can get. But the day would go by and the more customers came, the more produce that would be sold. Everything is laid out and slowly all the produce disappeared. Usually by 10 a.m., most of the stuff that she had brought with her would be gone. And a lot of the times, the only items that would be left would be either coconuts, sometimes bananas, because most customers had a lot of the same stuff selling around. So people walking around, they would try to find the best looking product or produce that a customer would have. But there was no guarantee that if a customer saw something that one vendor had, that if they looked around somewhere else and came back, that the produce would still be there. Usually around noon, we would have something for lunch. And not too long after that, my grandmother and I would head to the grocery store to start shopping for grocery items. Usually the money that she spent was the money that she made from selling the produce that she had. And sometimes taking some money back with her from that. But at the time it seemed like groceries were way cheaper, which they were. But we didn't have a cart or anything to carry the groceries whenever we were done. So that's one of the reasons why I was her helper to carry everything back to the location where she was selling the stuff. Usually, one of the items that she would get was candy, and once she gets home, she would share it with the kids and grandkids. And then she would buy certain items like cakes. There was this one cake called a turnover. And pretty much it was baked with coconut in the middle. And usually that was one of almost everyone's favorite. But we would go to different locations, and usually, depending on what she had to get, the grocery store would be the last place she would stop, since we would be getting the most items from that grocery store. Whenever we were done shopping for groceries, we would head back, and she would not go anywhere without, usually at the time we call it a baton, but it was pretty much a walking stick to use as a guide for her support. But for the most part, she would have whatever she could in the hand. I would have most of the groceries, and she would just grab me by the elbows, or she would put her arms around on the inside of my elbows just for support, and wherever I went, that's where she went. Whenever we were done shopping and got back to her location where she had all her remaining items or produce, we would sit there and wait till my uncles or one of my uncles show up to take her back home. me, that was one of the exciting parts of the day, the drive back to the house. And usually once we got back to the house, it just felt so refreshing. Because usually I could feel that we lived up on a hill, and you could feel the breeze just blowing, and just from being in the hot sun, there's nothing like it. But as soon as we get home, we would get everything that she bought, offload it, or get it off the truck, and then carry every bag to the house. And then she would slowly separate everything and put it away. Then she would hand certain items or snacks that she bought, whether it was for my grandfather or the grandkids. She would share it around. And everyone looked forward to seeing her at the end of the day. Just like every other household. Because usually, most families that went to the market, besides the groceries, they always brought something back with them for their families. A snack, whether it was candy, cakes, bread, whatever it may be. But everyone looked forward to a family member who went to the market to bring something back for them.